to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for Thursday or Tuesday or Friday morning or Saturday afternoon. If you're doing the garden, because it's hot outside, because after all it is your podcast. He has sitting in the room on a table. He's got cuffs round his hands. He is not just a repeat offender. He's off to parole. Ladies and gentlemen.
I didn't know parole was a thing.
It could be. It could be for you if you play your cards right tonight. Because joining me once again is he puts the joy in Jowett.
Oh no!
He puts the education into Ed. It is the wonderful, fantastic Mr. Ed Jowett.
Oh dear. Hello. Hi everyone.
Hi.
Thanks Richard. It's great to be back once again. Always good to come here and have a chat with you about the various exciting things that I have going on.
It's what's it like where you are? Is it hot where you are?
Oh goodness, yes. Yeah, it's very, very warm indeed. I've had a bit of a nightmare today because I've been at home all day, and it's just the temperature of my flat has just gone. It's all over the place, and yeah, no, it's very, very warm, very, very warm.
It's been okay here, Can't complain. It's Scotland after all, which means it's generally.
I was going to say, it's
it's only -4. It's minus the sun. It's really funny because the sun came out, and you seen automatically as many people as possible kind of putting on shorts and t-shirt and going out looking like,
because it's the only opportunity you have.
It's like it's when you go down the kind of the paint aisle at B&Q and you've got the brilliant white section. And that's what you've got. This kind of, burn me, brilliant, sunshine, get my tan on. So it was kind of like that, which was always fun and always good. But we're not here to talk about the potentiality of the Auburn fair-skinned people of Scotland getting burnt to a crisp. We are actually here to talk about Deep Space and your latest Kickstarter, which is Battlecruiser Alamo.He. Or RPG, sorry.
RPG, usually. Conventionally, shall we say.
Powered by the ERA D10 system.
That's right.
How long's the campaign been running for?
So it's been running for about 20 days as of recording.
Okay.
Yeah, roughly. In fact, you know what? Since the 4th of April, so a little less, about a little over 2 weeks.
All right. Okay. So you still got a little bit of time to go. You got about 8 or 9 days to go by the time it's
9 days to date. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, just about at the recording, exactly 9 days.
We could time it, and then we could just start talking when it is exactly 9 days. Let's read the blurb, because we like to read the blurb. We don't always read the blurb, but it's always good, and you know how I like to do film voices.
I would be more than happy to read the blurb for you.
If you do that.
I can do the quote for you at least.
Do that, yeah, okay. Read the For a Century bit. Do it in your big spacey voice. Or your newsreader.
For a century, man has had the keys to unlock the universe. Our generation is privileged to be the one that opens the door. To finally realise the greatest dream of all, to touch the face of eternity itself, to reach the frontiers of our knowledge and see what lies beyond. Commencement address, Triplanetary Fleet Academy, 2169.
Does that sound familiar to you?
Well, I'll tell you what. Going back a year.
Yeah.
It didn't. I would never have known anything about this if it hadn't been for a couple of members of my team, in particular Keith, who has done my layout for a long time.
Yeah.
And also, obviously, I was here a few weeks ago talking about the not the Battlecruiser Alamo, the Era of the Empowered Kickstarter.
Yes.
And he's doing all of the artwork for that as well.
That's
and
cool.
he approached me and he said, "Hey Ed, Richard is looking around for something to do with his universe. He wants to get some more people to hear about his his books. What do you think about creating a role-playing game in that universe? It's a military sci-fi universe. I know that's your thing. Why don't you have a look and see what you think?" And about 10 pages later, I was completely hooked. It's a fantastic series of novels. I really, really enjoyed reading the ones that I sort of had the time to read in order to write the book. There are about 38 novels in this series. I've only read 5 of them, because I also have to write stuff.
Exactly.
And you know what? Here's a funny one for you. Over the last 6 years, I've written more books than I've read.
Let's have a word about this, Ed. Do you know what I mean? That's either you kind of going, "I write a lot," or it's you humble bragging. Kind of. I just happen to read.
Oh, no.
I just have to write more books than I read, actually, to be perfectly honest. I make more podcasts than I listen to be perfectly honest.
Well, I'm sure you probably do, actually.
That's not true. It sounds true, though.
It sounds possible.
It's pretty bad when you're looking at the queue for download on your podcast listener and realise that you're 50% of the episodes you're about to download, and you realise you've potentially got a slight problem there. I guess, you know what, we've forgotten the admin bit, so we have to jump back and say, for people that haven't listened to the show before, thanks very much for joining us. Hope you're having a fabulous day. The reason that we do this is quite simply there is not enough podcasts out there about board games.
I agree entirely.
And
not enough places for people who are creators, who are maybe on the smaller end, who therefore don't get, all of this big hype around stuff like there was a fantastic Alien-inspired board game that I saw recently.
Lifeform.
Really, really good.
Lifeform.
That's the one.
Lifeform.
It looked fantastic. But, I mean, those guys they sort of had organically word spreading. Some of us are smaller, maybe a bit less known. We have people like Richard are few and far between. It's fantastic to be able to come on and talk about what makes our stuff special, and have you guys able to listen to that.
It's pretty cool. And the other reason that we do this is because it's always a challenge to think up what next we're going to call Ed when he comes on. And I kind of like the challenge. This is different from what you've done before, because you're obviously taking somebody else's IP. I'm reading from the show notes tonight. Yeah.
Hence the Ruppiger as well.
Hence the Ruppiger as well. It is like, isn't it? Do you have... Do you know the directions to Humph? What? How'd you get to Humph? Could you spell it, mate? Yeah, it's HMV.
That's an incredibly British joke that no one else is
an incredibly British joke.
In fact, it's a British joke from 10 years ago. Because I think they've shut down, haven't they?
I think they have. It's like the guy that he walked into a TV, and we're not going to explain this because you're just going to have to go and find it yourself. But when he walks into a TV shop and he says, "I'm here about the lickety-tov."
Oh no!
He says, "What?" He says, "I'm here about the lickety-tov." He says, "Could you spell that, mate?" He says, "Yeah, it's LCDTV." Lickety-tov.
Lickety-tov.
Anyway, so it's just one of these things. But
IP, indeed.
IP, taking somebody else's IP and then
new adventure,
creating something, or creating a framework that then people can run off and do things with that IP. Is that a relatively strange thing for you to be doing, considering that so far you've kind of been the main driving creative force behind everything that's gone out of the kind of the Shades of Vengeance kind of stable, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest. This project has been a really interesting and different challenge. Because whenever something came up in my universes that didn't make sense, or I didn't like, or didn't quite mesh with what I wanted the game to be, I'd just change it. right? I mean, when you create the universe, you can do that. And suddenly not being able to do that anymore, having a requirement that you observe the feel and the content of a universe that someone else created and is established. The only thing that I've done that's vaguely close to it is actually the Era of the Consortium expansions. Because if I look back and go, that's not going to quite mesh, then I have to update the expansion rather than the material that's already out in the world. That said, I've got that pretty well planned, and that's only happened about twice across all of those expansions. So it's not something that comes up very often. But this, it was a case of sitting down and reading these books and going, okay, what are the core themes of these books? What feeling do you need to have in order for it to feel like Battlecruiser Alamo? And adding to that, it's not something that I've been familiar with for my whole life or the last 5 years or whatever. It's something that I've only come across, in the last 9-10 months. Which really meant that I have had to do a lot of catching up. Yeah. I've had to figure out what the feel of the universe is like. That's been an absolutely fascinating experience, and Richard himself, Richard Tung, the writer behind those novels, has been so supportive. I can't even. He's still writing. The man is prolific, to say the least. He wrote 100,000 words for this rulebook. So, where I would usually write the story, so I usually write stuff like details about factions, details about locations, the short stories based in the universe that give you a feel. Yeah. This is something I've been doing for a very, very long time. Yeah. He literally sat down and wrote this stuff. Just like in a period of like a month and a half, he just sat down and churned it all out. And all I've had to do is go through and edit it. So, making sure that it reads okay and so on is really all I've had to do. And he loves this universe. He breathes and lives it, and to be able to have that in an IP, to have the actual creator of it come along and actually contribute and help is massive. I mean, you don't get it. I mean, like, it doesn't happen, practically speaking. Yeah. So, it's absolutely phenomenal to have Richard on board, and to such a degree as he is. And then, obviously Keith has been the artist for Richard for the covers for years, and Keith did the extra artwork needed for this book. He's also doing the layout. It's a good looking book. I mean, you only have to scroll down the Kickstarter to see, all of these images. Particularly, I'm particularly a fan of the way he does the spaceships. Yeah. And they are just breathtaking. I love the stuff that he does for this. For the spaceships in particular, as I say.
Was working on somebody else's IP, has it given you kind of ideas, that about kind of your own stuff? I mean, have you thought, actually that's not that necessarily like you're doing, like, I think Philip Pullman who said kind of steal like a hummingbird, write like a bee kind of thing. Yeah. He says kind of borrow the favourite things that make you smile from where you can and try and turn them into something of your own. So is it kind of giving you inspiration for kind of other things? Has it made you look at your own collection of, I guess, your own IP in a kind of like a different light as well?
You know what? Any other project I've ever come across, the answer is yes. Yeah. Era Balam, I think I spoke to you about some time ago now, about 6 months ago. Yeah. That came from hearing about Elite Dangerous, I think I said at the time. It came from hearing about Elite Dangerous, and I thought, how would I do this? And I'm very, very influenced by the things that are around me. Mm-hmm. I take things and I sort of apply my own lens, my own viewpoint to them. Yeah. But the hilarious thing about Battlecruiser Alamo, when I sat down with Richard for the first time, it was actually at UK Games Expo in Birmingham. And when I sat down with Richard for the first time to really talk about the universe in detail, it is so similar, in essence, to the way that I've designed the Era of the Consortium universe, it is uncanny. I mean, there are differences. He's got hyperspace, and Era of the Consortium only has wormholes, so it's very specific where you can go to.
Yeah.
But his hyperspace is very limited. Like, you can only go to Lagrange points. He has, I have strike weapons and laser cannons as close-in stuff.
Yeah.
And he has laser cannons as the long-range and powerful stuff, and missiles. But the essence of the way things work, the essence of that military feel of the craft, the way that units are organised, the way that people go rushing headlong into danger, sort of, in general, the feel is so similar to Era of the Consortium. We were sat there cracking up the entire time, because I was finishing his sentences for him about the way the setting was.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, do you mean like this? And he's like, yeah, exactly like that.
That's pretty cool.
It was a really interesting meeting of minds there, because we are so meshed, and I assume that this is because both of us grew up on the same kind of sci-fi TV shows, the same kind of books, and I've been watching sci-fi since I was about 3 or 4 years old, as long as I can remember. My mother was a big sci-fi fan, I watched TNG. I didn't even know that the original series existed until after the TNG run ended in the UK. So, I was quite young at that stage. So,
I don't believe that. I think you were born about 25. Just popped
a
up.
lot of people say that.
Stuff just popped out and started writing. Do you know what I mean? Oh, it's an RPG. It's based on a maternity hospital. You need to, and your mum's just like, what? Well, he looks like an ed. He looks like he's going to put the ed in education. But yeah, no, I mean, it was a really interesting experience to sort of do that. And, he and I have such similar views that, honestly, the answer in this one case is no. I've not really changed any view on how any of my stuff works. Yeah. Because we had such a similar vision. And the way that he's executed it is very different, but the feel, it's definitely something that you could have achieved with Era of the Consortium, yes. Mm-hmm. But there are some elements of his universe which, we didn't discuss at that stage, but, I sat down and I read the books, and combat is brutal. Not so much space combat. Space combat is pretty similar to the way that I frame it in Era of the Consortium. Yeah. But ground combat is a bloodbath. All right. It's absolutely brutal. 70% of the squad of Space Marines die in the first book. It's like, whoa, how many just died? The weapons are so powerful relative to people. Yeah. That people just get slaughtered. And that is where, he and I sort of discussed it a bit, and we came up with this idea of having not one character for the role-playing game, but two. One of them is an officer on the ship. Because right? I read this and I was like, right, this is an unusual. But you've
as far as I know, and please, if any listeners know otherwise, let Richard know. I'm sure he'll pass it on to me. I believe it is unique. No one has been able to tell me of any other game where the cool rule actually was you have two characters. There are games where you have a main character and a sort of a group of support characters. Yeah, that happens. But where you actually have two equal characters, no one seems to be able to tell me anything else. I've asked sort of RPG creator groups on Facebook. I've asked people on forums. No one can think of anything.
But then, so what do you know? But then you did when you did was it Era Balam, when you did like the spaceship stuff. That was pretty cool.
That was also pretty cool, and I think to some degree I've entered a phase where I'm quite interested in duality of characters, because Era Balam is the opposite side of that coin. Whereas in this game you have two characters that you can play as. In Era Balam, without your ship, you aren't a character, so there are two parts to the character. So it's sort of, in a sense, it's similar, but then, given that both of the characters in this can act independently and differently, one being the officer on the ship, who will run around. Maybe he's the engineer, or maybe he's the gunnery officer, or whatever. And he's running around and he's doing stuff on the ship. And then you've got your Espatier, your space marine.
Yeah.
Who can go down to the planet and probably get killed. But the reasoning behind this was actually, okay, well, if one part of your character is likely to get killed, you don't want to get killed a lot. And also, in this universe, officers don't go down to the planet. Right? It just doesn't happen. You don't get Captain Kirk. You send the mooks, right? I mean, you send the expendable people.
Yeah.
So, you maybe have a junior officer who's the Espatier officer, and then the rest of them are all mooks that go down.
Yeah.
So, aliens, perhaps, is a good analogy.
Oh, yeah,
You've got Gorman, who's the lieutenant, and he's the one junior officer there.
Yeah.
And then the rest are all NCOs at best and grunts at worst. And these guys, they go down, they potentially get killed, and you want to be able to re-roll your character without feeling like you've really lost something too bad.
Is it kind of like the XCOM side of things, where you kind of like, there's a chance you're going to lose characters and you're going to be bringing in kind of replacements for those characters?
It sort of is, yeah. And very much, I don't know about you, but when I play XCOM, I often develop an attachment to some characters and not to others, right? So I imagine when you play this, and I've seen this in playtests, but I imagine that, when as more and more people play this, what they'll find is sometimes they'll roll an Espatier and they'll never really feel the character, and they'll die within a couple of sessions and no one will care. And then sometimes you'll have this epic Espatier who, lost for 5 sessions and goes down every time, and they're always fine and they're always brilliant. Bullets just seem to slide off them, and you have a Leon situation, They just can't seem to die.
Yeah.
Leon the Professional, that is. That was a movie reference for anyone who didn't pick it up.
That's how old's that film? Because we're talking...
Oh, yeah. No, I love that movie, though.
It's about 15 years old, probably, or something like that.
I think it's more.
Don't even let's find out, Ed. Let's do it live. Let's find out just now. Anyway, yeah, because we might as well actually feel Leon the Professional.
Yeah.
Let's see.
1994.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was 90s.
That's 23 years ago.
Yeah.
24 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, Natalie Portman's quite young in it, isn't she?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's just... I'm going to cry. I don't know if you're crying. I'm slightly
No.
crying.
I am... I've recently had my birthday, actually. Right. Just about a week ago.
All right.
I have become a year older.
Happy birthday.
And, thank you. And I'm mostly over it at this point.
What the hell? Or...
I'm mostly over it for now. I mean... Who knows how I'll feel in 6 months' time or a year's time? But for now, I'm mostly over it.
Yeah. But going back to the game.
Yeah. And then when that person dies, the guy who survived everything, or the girl who survived everything, you're like, you really feel bad. I'm a veteran reloader in XCOM. Because I'm like, no, that person can't die. No, I'm reloading. I don't care if I have to start the mission again. I don't care. That person can't die.
You're one of these people that you've got kind of like your save states, and you've got about 7 of them, and then you kind of remember which one you can go back to. I usually play
Iron Man, so...
Oh, right, okay.
I've platinumed on the PS4. I've platinumed all of the XCOM games. Because I had Enemy Unknown and then Enemy Within, and then XCOM 2. And I also had Enemy Unknown Plus on the PS Vita. So I'm vaguely obsessional about XCOM, I think it's fair to say. But yeah, I've platinumed them all. So I've done my fair share of Iron Man games, and they're definitely challenging. And it's that moment when you realise that no matter what, this character who you've grown to love is going to sacrifice themselves. And you know that that's not going to destroy your game. You still have your officer who's on the ship. You still have the opportunity to roll a new Espatier. But you have that sense of loss and the sense of need for renewal. The other thing that I found about having the two characters, and I found this through playtests. Sometimes it can get a bit boring playing the same character week in, week out for years. But having the alternative, and particularly with the Espatier likely to change, really freshens that up. You know, you have opportunities as the GM to make the players feel a lot more set upon. You know, because you can have the ship fighting at the same time as the guys on the planet are fighting. You can flick backwards and forwards as often or as infrequently as you like.
Yeah.
So you can sort of do a round up there and a round down there, or you could even do one session up there and one session down there.
Yeah.
You know, and anywhere in between. And that, you know, that really gets the players sort of going, oh no, I mean, I feel like something's coming from every direction, which really is something that's very much a theme of the universe, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So again, it was all about adapting, and I've talked about this a few times before with you. It's all about adapting the rules in the game to get the feel of the universe so that it's appropriate to the IP. And that's something, obviously, I have a lot of experience doing now. But in order to achieve that, and I do very much credit Richard with you know, sort of ideas that pushed me in the right direction for this. We've really come up with some really interesting new ways of doing things that, as far as I can tell, haven't been done anywhere else.
Like what?
Oh, well, like this dual character thing.
Yeah. I mean, have you made it an awful lot easier for people to kind of re-roll their character when they do die? I mean, or is it something that they have to go back? Because one thing with like generating a character again is that it can take up some time. So if you kind of cut it so you can just take some basic, you know, here's some basic stats, and you can make it very, very easy for people to get kind of back into the action.
Yeah, so what I've done is there are example characters in the back of the rulebook. I always do that, but in this case I'm actually adding some extra ones so that people can go, okay, well, I'm going to roll a d10 and I'll have this, you know, this character build, and you can just draw it in your character sheet. Mm-hmm. But in reality, I sat down and I did an entire character sheet, both the officer and the Espatier, in 14 minutes and 49 seconds, and that was including going slowly and explaining.
Well,
I've got a YouTube video of it up on the Kickstarter there. I reckon I could sit down, or any of my group who've been playing Era D10 for anywhere from a year to 5 years, I reckon any of those guys could sit down and roll an Espatier in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Draw it out in 5 minutes or so.
What about then the people that are looking on this for the first time? I mean, have you had to take that into consideration as well?
Absolutely.
For the game, if you're going to get, you know, some of the fan base picking this up maybe in the future, or finding out about it just now and deciding to go ahead and back. Is that something that you've really had to kind of take into account? This is potentially people that might jump on to the series just now, and then by association are going to jump back into potentially the rest of the Era back catalogue as well.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay.
So all of our Era games are designed, you know, the whole rule set is designed to be easy for beginners. We actually sit down at conventions like MCM Comic Con, in London. We've been doing that for some years now. And we sit people down who have never played a role-playing game before. Many, many people have never played a role-playing game before. One of my actual team actually played his very first role-playing game at MCM and then later joined my team because he liked it so much. And we've designed the games in order to make it easy to play. So yes, I've had to really think very hard about that, especially with this character sort of being a little more complicated because you have to sort of do it twice. And that's the reason why the example characters I mentioned a minute ago are so numerous in the back of this book. But equally, it is a case of, you just need to sort of count some numbers. You know, you get 6, 5, 4 in rows on the left-hand half, and you get 11, 7, and 4 in rows on the right-hand half. And most of these words, like strength or intelligence or luck, they're not hard to understand what it means for your character. You know, I mean, it's not hard to understand. And if you understand that you have to put 6 points in, do you want to put three in strength, 3 in intelligence, and nothing in charisma, or do you want to sort of split it more evenly, 2 in each, or do you want to maybe have 1 they're not very good at and 2 they're very good at, and so on. And it's not hard to put, to split 6 dots across 3 different boxes in a row. I don't think that it'll be too hard, and I would really think that barring indecision, and remind me to come back to that, barring indecision, I don't think it would take more than 10, 15 minutes, even for an absolute first-time person.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things when I guide people through character creation in my rulebooks, I always advise, and I was reading through Icons, which is, for those who don't know, a superhero role-playing game. One I have a lot of respect for. It's not as good as Era the Empowered, of course.
No,
but,
of course not.
Of course. But it is a very, it's a solid and popular superhero role-playing game, and you can see why when you look at the book. But one of the things that I really disagree with the way they did it is they talk about making your stats first and then figuring out what your character is like.
Yeah.
And to me, that's backwards. You should never ever create a character that way, because if you're role-playing a character, you're role-playing the character, right? You've got to have an idea of what that character is like before you start writing down that they're strong and smart. If you do it the other way, then you're not role-playing the character you want to play. You're building stats according to sort of an ultimate paradigm, whatever you see as the best thing, and then sort of fitting the character to that afterwards. Whereas if you come at it from the direction of, okay, well, my character, he is a bit of a scrapper. But when the odds are facing him, he's going to run away. He's not, when the odds are against him, he's not going to stand there and sacrifice his life. He's not that guy. He's the guy who runs away and lives to fight another day. Did you find that stats for that?
Did you then find that people who are playing 2 different characters have got a tendency to try and play those characters as 2 different people? That if they know, for instance, that their soldier is potentially going to be going bye-bye, that they are more likely to be, brash and, with that, have a different kind of attitude than being the commander or being the officer and knowing that they might pretend they're going to have a longer life on the,
Actually, no, I found it was completely the other way around.
Really?
People saw the fact that Espatiers are more likely to die as a challenge.
Right, okay.
I'm not going to let my Espatier die, is what the player thinks.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. I'm not going to put them in a situation where that's going to happen. And, that then leads to this determination that, yeah, they might do heroic things, but they're not going to do stupid things. Yeah. Which actually, again, feeds really nicely back into the whole... into the whole thing. If someone's going to sacrifice themselves, then it's epic and heroic, and it's, running in with 2 plasma grenades to blow up the shuttle. And it's a deliberate choice that they're sacrificing themselves, because that's going to save everyone else's lives. And the officers ended up being the more brash and thoughtless individuals, because they had to worry less about whether they would be alive at the end of the session.
Yeah.
So I because I assumed exactly what you're saying. I assumed everyone would just run headlong into fire because they didn't care. But no, I mean there is of course this essential thing for role players where most people don't want their character to die no matter what. And I think that carries over and plays nicely into this universe's feel to maintain that, because all of these guys are well trained. All of these characters are well trained military individuals. They're not stupid, and they're not going to run headlong into enemy fire just because it's funny.
So, when you're running your games, are you finding they're kind of like more Battlestar Galactica in terms of the conversation that's going back and forward than kind of like Star Trek? Is it kind of more real? Is it kind of more really, or is it even closer? Is it even closer maybe to I don't know, a kind of a war.
I got to be
type
honest,
thing?
it's a lot more Galaxy Quest than it is Star Trek.
Really?
My group are fairly notoriously silly though. I mean, for example, there is a scenario that we run at conventions. We have one for every single game, and the one for Battlecruiser Alamo involves you. One of the other things I should say, just as a quick aside, the universe, the Triplanetary Confederation within the first 3 books, which the core rulebook is based around, is very new. It's very newly formed, and all of the 3 main factions believe they should be the superior one.
Oh, right.
So there's Mars, Titan, and Callisto.
Yeah.
And, Titan are very ramshackle and not very well organised. Mars are somewhere in the middle, and Callisto are totally military and professional.
Yeah.
And, the captain is, on the Battlecruiser Alamo, the captain is from Mars, the first officer's from Callisto, and the second officer's from Titan. And the Callistans and the Titans are trying to push themselves up the ranks a bit. So there's a mutiny in the first book. Spoilers. There's a mutiny in the first book, and I'm not going to tell you how it goes, but there is a mutiny in the first book. You find that out within about the first 20
Generally,
pages.
a mutiny happens when there's a thing in charge, and then people within that power structure decide they don't want the other people at the top to be in charge.
I mean, and those are the kinds of things. But that is and in the second book, there isn't exactly a mutiny. There's internal intrigue all through these first 3 books.
Yeah.
And that's something that I wanted to capture, and it's very much up to the GM how they interpret this. But what we did for this session is we said, okay, so the ship that you're on, which is not the Alamo, you don't play on the Alamo in this game, that's not the idea.
Yeah.
It's based in that universe, but there are 6 other battle cruisers. They're all named after hopeless battles, so like Thermopylae, Alamo, and so on.
Yeah.
And you're on board one of these other ones. So, you are in the midst of a mutiny. You are escorting the security officer, and the security officer in this case is a computer hacker, not like a Worf. It's computer security, cyber security.
All right, okay.
More like Edie in Mass Effect.
All right, okay, yeah, okay.
So you're escorting this person to the auxiliary control room in order to save the ship. Because not only is the mutiny going on, there's also a ship-to-ship battle going on at the same time, and the mutineers are trying to take over and hand over to the other ship. And you round a corner, and you run into a guy. And this guy has a plasma cannon. Plasma cannons can breach hulls of starships. That's very, very much a theme of Richard's books, and it's very much a thing that's been maintained. They have a high chance of breaching the hull if you fire them, and if they don't breach the hull, they may well still damage a lot of systems. So, he's like, "Are you mutineers?" To which the response is, of course, "No, of course we're not." "Well, prove it."
Okay.
And that's where the hilarity happens, because how do you prove that you're not a mutineer?
Show my badge.
No, because the mutineers are part of the crew.
I don't know.
Exactly. I mean, and that's the point, right? So, I mean, this is supposed to be a thing that you have to try and get around. It's a deliberate obstacle that you run into, and it's all part of, giving someone an example of what the game plays like, right? So this is an hour-long session, that this is just the first thing that happens. And I had the people who tried to convince him. I had the people who ran round the corner past him and sort of dodged all the plasma fire. I had the people who kneecapped him. I had the people who deliberately annoyed him or taunted him so that he would fire, breach the hull, and suck himself out of the hole. It went from the sublime to the ridiculous. And unfortunately, my group, and I have playtested with other groups, of course, but my group in general tend towards the ridiculous. Which is hilarious, and we have a lot of fun, but I also know there are a lot of groups out there who take things very seriously. And the thing is that you can play this game with a sense of the ridiculous, while still maintaining this feeling of being a little bit set upon, a little bit overly surrounded. Okay, and who do we trust? Because when someone walks up to you in a spacesuit, do you trust this person? Are they a mutineer? Are they just looking to try and kill you?
Depends. If I'm in the middle of Tesco's and somebody walks up to me in a spacesuit, then I'm probably more likely to not trust them. But it depends if they're in the frozen food section or not, because they might just want
to stay warm.
They might just be wanting to stay warm.
In this weather, spacesuits make a lot more sense.
They absolutely do.
What
about alien races? I mean, are there alien races? And are there alien races in the universe? I mean, obviously.
So aliens are a fascinating thing in this universe, and again, this is something that I've only come across in one other place, really, in my experience. There are alien races. However, they are so different to humanity that aliens and humans have never had any kind of parole. They aren't at war. They'll show up, they'll bounce transmissions backwards and forwards for a while. No one will understand anyone, and they'll turn around and go away.
All right. Okay.
It's a lot like I compare it to Darmok in Star Trek: The Next Generation, the episode when Picard shows up and ends up down on the planet with the alien captain.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand each other.
Yeah.
He just sits down and he starts talking to them, and they have the universal translator in Star Trek, of course, which makes life incredibly easy. And this is the only time I've ever really seen in sci-fi that this kind of thing happens. Because even with the Horta in the original series, where the universal translator didn't work, it was less a case of not understanding each other. They came to an understanding. This really was a case of
his eyes open or something, or in Shadora where the walls fell or something like that.
Shakar when the walls fell.
Oh, you know it. Of course you know it.
Darmok and Shalad at Tanagra.
Right,
I do know it. I'm a Trekkie. I'm sorry.
Are you a Trekkie as opposed to a Trekker?
I am a Trekkie as opposed to a Trekker.
Are Trekkers more serious?
I can't remember which way round it was. Once upon a time, I would have known.
You no longer care.
Well, no, I never really cared that much. I just knew the difference. I am only a fan of the storytelling and what you see on the screen. That's always been my thing.
Yeah.
I know all of the episodes very well. I've been watching them, as I said, since I was very, very young.
Yeah.
I've watched all of the episodes more times than I can count. I really, 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 really like Star Trek and the way that it's presented. Mostly. Let's not get into Star Trek. I could talk for a very long time about that.
Let's not get into Star Trek. So was it an unusual thing then? You were not actually kind of having the kind of the typical kind of alien threat and having to think up monsters and stuff like that. It was more of a struggle between people.
That said, there are some mysteries in the universe. And actually I want to say it's the second image in the body of the thing. This giant sort of 2001-esque monolith, except it's glowing. There are some secrets in this setting that we include for the GM. Again, Richard's written all this stuff out himself. It's stuff that exists in his mind, but may or may not exist in the books yet.
That's not me as well. I'm just pointing out that every time Ed says Richard and it sounds like somebody's doing something intelligent.
I am talking about Richard Tongue.
You're talking about Richard Tongue. You're not talking about me, because I would never, ever be able to write anything that intelligent, as everybody's going to find out over the next couple of days.
So, he's written out all of these secrets for the setting, and there's a lot of opportunity for bringing aliens in, and I don't want to spoiler anyone who's going to read the books, but aliens are involved in the second book to a degree, not living ones. But there's a lot of, Mass Effect-esque mystery about aliens in our solar system. How did they get there?
You can't have sex with an alien, Ed, can you?
I suppose it depends on the alien. In theory, you could have sex with an alien. You would not be able to give birth to live young, assuming that they are a different species. Sorry, that is, you would not be able to give birth to young which were capable of procreation. you would, if you had a capability of limited compatibility, you could end up with a mule. A mule kind of situation.
Yeah.
But no, that is the definition of a species. So if they're an alien species, then no.
Cool. Let's talk about the campaign itself.
Yeah.
You're funded.
Yeah.
You're a little bit over the funded. Did you go for a lower kind of goal to kind of get it out there? Because this seems to be kind of like a trend, is that people are putting kind of down lower and lower goals on Kickstarter in order to hit the magical kind of funded level. And I guess
I've been doing this for a very long time, putting low goals in. I've never felt a need to pay for the entire development of the book on Kickstarter. I don't think it's necessary, and I don't think it's necessarily the right way to do things either.
Right.
There are certainly a lot of negatives, and this is for anyone out there who is considering making a game of any sort on Kickstarter. If you have a massive Kickstarter with tens of thousands of pounds, and you go to a retailer, a lot of retailers will turn you away. Because they think that everyone who's interested has probably backed the Kickstarter.
Yeah. I never thought about that. That's actually a really, the massively successful...
Yeah.
If you're thinking about... I guess, a little while ago I did say not too long ago that there was somebody that posted on Facebook to say, hey, look, my friendly local game store is selling copies of Conan for $25 each. Is it worthwhile kind of picking up? Because, as you said, I think everybody that was interested in the game at the time has gone ahead and got themselves a copy. So I guess you got to wonder again. It comes back to the retail trade. It's a retail trail because it's a fine balance, isn't it?
For Conan, it's probably a bit of a different story because there are people out there who will buy it who won't back a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
The sad truth is that there are people out there who give Kickstarter a very, Kickstarter creators a very bad name. It's not great, and for someone like me, it's terrible to see. I'm 21 projects in on this account. I've got 7. I'm 21 projects in on this account. I've got 7 on our comics account, and I've done 3. I've run 3 other campaigns for other people under the Shades of Vengeance banner as well.
Okay.
So, it's not something that I sort of like at all, that people have given such a bad name, but that means that something like Conan, you're quite likely to find someone who's going to be interested enough in Conan to buy it.
Yeah.
With something like this, if I was to have, a 10k Kickstarter, I don't think any retailers would be interested in carrying it because, they'd assume anyone who wants it has bought it.
Because the point of entry, and this is the same with the other campaigns, your point of entry for getting involved is as little as, it's like usually pledge £5 and you can join along with the Kickstarter. On this, you kind of pledge £5 and you're getting the kind of the setting guide. If you pledge £7, you're getting the player's guide. If you pledge 12, you're getting the player's guide in a paperback. 19 is getting you the core rulebook in digital format. And then you're getting everything digital at 22, and then the core rulebook at 32.
In paperback,
paperback, yeah. Is it cost effective still to kind of get so many kind of different versions kind of printed out?
Well, there aren't actually that many different versions being printed out. There are only 2 books being printed.
Yeah.
That's the core rulebook and the rulebook primer.
Yeah.
Core rulebook does come in paperback and in hardback, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But for example, the higher up tiers, I've done a GM's bundle, and I know that some people find this sort of thing really, really useful because you're sat around the table. The player's guide gives you everything you need to create a character. You're sat around the table. You're 4 or 5 people. And you want to have a rulebook and 3 players' guides so that everyone can create their character at the same time without having to wait and pass the book and so on.
As Kickstarter continues to be the behemoth, there's another. Brian Lewis, that was on the show Dinosaur Island, appears to potentially going to be hitting kind of like 2 million. Brian's absolutely fabulous. He was a fantastic when he was on. Do you think we're reaching the point where maybe certain projects aren't just going to bother with Kickstarter because there seems to be a reasonable skew towards the kind of the bigger projects now? Or is it still something that you're going to continue to rock up with, and it's going to take a really different platform with a really different view that is going to turn your head?
I have not seen another platform that offers what Kickstarter offers yet.
Right.
And what Kickstarter offers, and I think pretty much anyone who runs a lot of Kickstarter projects sees a similar thing. Kickstarter offers a massive audience of people who are interested in projects.
Yes.
Right? Like anywhere up to 50, 60, 70% on some Kickstarters come internally from Kickstarter. Right? I mean, that's huge. That's a huge number of people, potentially. There are people who know that there are some amazing things coming up on Kickstarter, and I'm talking primarily about games. I don't know too much about anything other than games and comics.
Yeah.
But because I've never run any other kind of project yet.
Yet? Okay.
Oh yeah. Well, I've got something else planned that I've been working on with our sound guy Leo.
Oh yeah.
We're doing an audio drama. We've been working on it for some time. We've already finished 3 episodes of it, and we're aiming to do 12 for a season and fund its release on Kickstarter.
That'd be cool.
Leo is very, very talented. He's a talented voice actor. They've got me in there doing some stuff as well. I'm the comic relief, if you like.
I can't imagine anyone more suited for the job.
Indeed.
But I mean, are we at the case that are we kind of at the case of Amazon, kind of eBay, kind of big corporate? Because Kickstarter is approaching big corporate kind of entity, isn't it? I mean, it's got millions of pounds, millions of dollars going through its platform. Yes, it's kind of taking a slice, but it's a hefty decision maker for a lot of people. It's not a case that I think you spoke about this last time. It was about kind of like Project We Love statuses and things like that. Is that it would be great if they just like took sort of project like yourselves or a smaller indie publisher and just put them front and center to say, well, why are we, why put kind of
why put the project we love on projects that are already going to succeed beyond wildest dreams?
I mean, I've seen the new ones like God Tier, which is out, which looks fantastic, but is very, very well funded. Batman Romped Home, Seventh Continent, all these kind of things. They're going to fund. How about giving somebody a smaller guy a slice of the pie? But as you say, it's kind of like Amazon, eBay, any of these big companies, is that they're so big you wouldn't go anywhere else because, as you say, you wouldn't get the kind of the same exposure. I mean, Kickstarter's got its own app. It's so easy just to use. And to be honest,
I know people who sort of run a Kickstarter and then run an Indiegogo or whatever.
Yeah,
I've seen that.
I've seen it as a follow up for funding. But
yeah,
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think we've had one company that's come on to talk about their Indiegogo campaign, and that was Mike Barnes, wonderful, beautiful Mike Barnes, to talk about Diced when that was on, and that was
yeah. No, I was trying to remember where I knew the name from. Diced, of course, yeah. Great guys, Diced. Really fantastic guys. I mean, I think that for now, Kickstarter's not going anywhere. For as long as indie projects get some funding on Kickstarter, it will exist. And it will exist to help people like myself who need that faith that I'm going to be printing 40 copies.
Yeah.
Who need that reassurance or that little bit of extra money to finish, which is very much a thing on our comics. We often get very, very close and then run out of budget because John always wants to do more and better and look nicer, and I'm like, John, we only had this much Yeah, Jonathan Lewis. This is my head of comics here at Shades of Vengeance. We do a lot of the work together, but he'll go, oh, but I want this artist, and I know he's this much more, and but it's so good, and I want it. That scenario exists, or someone funds a game and they put £10,000 of their own money into it, and they need £2,000 more, and they just don't have that money to go ahead and kick off a proper production run.
Yeah.
All of this stuff exists. All of this stuff is there. And I think for as long as people on Kickstarter are willing to back indie games, I think indie games will always be there.
Yeah.
I've not seen any sign of the number decreasing. And I think that while as an indie game, you have to be realistic about what you can achieve.
Yeah.
1,500 for me for this project is perfect. I'm more than happy with that. Don't get me wrong, I would love to have more, but I am totally happy with getting that funded. And if we get not a penny more, I will be happy to put this out and go, yep, we did this. This is the Battlecruiser Alamo.He. It's the brainchild of Richard Tongue and myself.
Yes.
And we've put this time, we've put this effort. Look at this amazing book that we've produced together. And I will be proud of that.
That's awesome. So say we all. What we'll do is, as always, we shall make sure that we will put the links for the show notes, which in your case is really easy because all I need to go to is the previous episode. Basically, copy everything that was said before, and just take out this the Kickstarter and replace it with a kind of like the new one.
Yeah, I do like to make your life easier.
You do. It's fantastic. It's absolutely so appreciated by all these people that just don't do that, and I have to actually go to Google and like search for their company so I can find their links. It's just so
time consuming.
Just like that's 7.5 minutes of my life I never ever get back.
Never get it
it's
back.
Absolutely just ridiculous. But for everywhere else, if you go and search Shades of Vengeance, search on Kickstarter, you're going to find Ed and all his lovely campaigns, and obviously he's on places like Twitter, he's on places like Facebook. You'll probably find him here again in about 3 months' time, to be perfectly honest, because that's the way we kind of roll.
You think it's going to be as long as that? Wow, that's optimistic. We've got some awesome. Just what we got 5 minutes left. We do have some awesome other things planned. We've got Evil Overlord, which is our second card game, where you are an evil mastermind attempting to take over the world. Unfortunately, your minions won't all fight together. So you go down to the evil minion market to trade with the other evil masterminds to take over the world. You want to have the best army at the end of it, you see. It's a brilliant game. We've had a lot of success with our sort of pre-release print. Everyone absolutely loves it. I've sent it all over the world for playtesting and comment and so on. And really great stuff. And then we've got our next major role-playing game, which will come as soon as Era of the Empowered is done, pretty much. It'll probably be August-ish.
Cool.
And it'll be Era the Chosen, our first horror game. And actually, if you're interested in a horror game on the Era D10 rule set, we actually have a Facebook group devoted to Era the Chosen.
Okay.
So if you search Era the Chosen in Facebook, you'll come up with the official Era the Chosen group. And I'm posting weekly in there little snippets, stories and images and explanations about what's what, and you want to know what the bad guys look like. Well, they're like this, and that was the one I just posted today.
Does that mean I need to change the link?
No. That one.
Give me another link.
I can give you another link if you like.
That'll be fine. That'll be fine. And for people who want to keep an eye on what we're doing, I wish I could like copy and paste.
Yeah, just no. You know what? For people who want to keep an eye on what We're Not Wizards is doing, go to the Shades of Vengeance Facebook page and click through to this interview, and then you'll be on the right website.
There you go. That's fantastic. That's what we want. Or Oh, he's such a cheeky monkey. Or you can go to Twitter, you can go to Facebook, you can go to, jokingly around, but I think we're still on Google+, no idea why. You can go to Instagram, you can go to Stitcher and Spreaker and Acast and Spotify. We're still on Spotify.
I've literally barely heard of any of those.
They're all magical and wonderful. We're also on Apple Podcasts as well, so if you want to be a real sweetie, then please go to Apple Podcasts and drop us a subscription. If you want to be even more glorious, drop us a rating or a review. If you are going to give us a rating or a review,
it's a 10. No, I'm not having you do this again. Give him a 10. Give him a 10. He deserves a 10. He works hard. He spends at least 7.5 minutes Googling people's companies and putting the links up. I mean, come on. If that doesn't deserve a 10, I don't know what does. Let's be honest here.
We need to thank our new patrons on our Patreon, which I usually don't kind of go on about the Patreon, but we seem to be, even though we're putting people off where we can, we seem to be having people who say they've got nothing better to do and they're throwing us some money, which is always really, really nice. So thank you to John and thank you to Anthony as well for joining our wonderful little Patreon family, which seems to be growing. And as we say, don't give us a 10 because it makes us big-headed, and don't give us a 1. Don't give us a 1 because it makes us cry.
Don't listen
give us
to
a 5. You're ruining the joke, Edward.
I know, but I've heard the joke so many times.
It's fantastic. Just, 5 because it's average. Winner, it is average. We're decidedly average, but the person who's not been average tonight, he puts the ed in education and the joy in Jowett. It's that's sticking out every time. He's on parole. He was a repeat offender. It's the wonderful, fantastic Mr. Ed Jowett. So
thanks very much for having me.
It's always an absolute star pleasure. There's only 2 more things to do. The first thing is to remember, go to Kickstarter and check out this Kickstarter.
Battlecruiser Alamo.He.
Get yourself a Ripiga.
Or Rupiga, if you are so inclined.
Remember, Ripiga. And if you want to be checking it out on Kickstarter, make sure you check it out on your site, Shiny Liquidative. But it's only just, say goodbye, Ed.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for listening to us ramble on for over an hour.
It's always fantastic. And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s and...
Tens.
Roll 10s. So always get it wrong.
Era D10.
D10.
Clues in the name.
And, just do stuff. It's all fun. But until the next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.